Yo, what's up, guys? It's your boy Bernie here. Sorry I'm not in my regular studio creating a video. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I know that there's some driving noises, but I just had to make this video. So recently, Gordon Hayward just got he just signed to the Charlotte Hornets for like a 4-year, $120 million deal. To be honest with you, I think that's a little bit of an overpay, especially with the way that the Hornets have so many players that are so overpaid at this point. If we think of guys like Nicholas Batum, he still has 1 year left on his deal, worth about $27 million. Gordon Hayward now making that money. You know, you're paying Bismack Biyombo that much money too, about like 18, 17. And then you're also paying Terry Rozier that money as well. The issue also is that now that you have LaMelo Ball, like, I think it makes sense to have Gordon Hayward there, but at the same time, I just don't know if he's necessarily the right fit for them, especially like if their aspirations is to kind of build a team and to kind of grow and develop, then I don't think that Gordon Hayward is necessarily the guy that you bring in. I think the guy that you probably bring in is some of these players that are getting signed up, like a Fred VanVleet, a Joe Harris. Like, I would have rather taken a Joe Harris, to be honest with you, than a Gordon Hayward, just because I know Gordon Hayward at this moment isn't necessarily the player that we thought he was. I think a lot of teams were kind of stunned. I think a lot of teams around the league are going to be stunned with how much money they just paid Gordon Hayward. I mean, I don't think any of these teams, like even the Celtics, like at the beginning I kind of thought like, wow, that was kind of a lot of money, $34 million. Like, there's no way that Gordon Hayward gets that much money in the open market. But, you know, the Charlotte Hornets and many of these teams that are kind of fodder teams, they seem to like just break the mold and overpay these players that don't necessarily, not like they don't deserve the money, but they're not necessarily worth the money at this moment. And I don't think that Gordon Hayward is worth a 4-year extension, especially at his age, around like, I believe he's like 30-something. So that one's interesting. But I will say that the biggest losers in all of this is the Boston Celtics. As someone that is a Celtics fan, the frustrating thing about it is that we didn't get anything out of it for Gordon Hayward. I know that there was some sign and trade stuff going on that we could have done, but ultimately we just didn't make the right moves to secure a player. Like, we just kind of let people go, and it's just not necessarily what I expected. You know, a couple years ago when Gordon Hayward signed, when Kyrie Irving signed, you know, those two looked at each other, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, you know, it's an exciting time. We brought in a superstar player. We're bringing in a star player. But ultimately, those players have not panned out. And maybe Tyrese, if you're watching this video, maybe you're right. Maybe Marcus Smart is kind of the reason why this team just doesn't succeed. But I still think in my heart of heart, I think that Marcus Smart is still a great player. I still think that he could develop and grow for our team. But ultimately, this is kind of an L for the Celtics, because not only did we not get a draft pick for it, like a high one, not only did we not get the players we wanted in the draft, but also we kind of gave up using a player for a trade. And, you know, now there's rumors that Kemba Walker is going to get traded, which kind of shows that we kind of failed at that. And so right now it's looking like it's a bad cake recipe right now for the Boston Celtics. Like, we just don't have the right recipe in the ingredients. We have some of them, like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart to an extent, but at the same time, it's just not looking too hot for the Celtics right now. I'm hoping that there's something coming up in the future, because ultimately this is something that we need to do as the Celtics. We need to figure out like who's going to be our point guard if we're going to trade. Rumors has it that I've heard, and some stuff that I've kind of listened to, is that Bradley Beal might be something that we're looking after. One of my friends kind of proposed a trade offer of John Wall and Bradley Beal for Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker. We'll see if that works. I'm not really too sure about that one. But that could be a nice trade. That could be something that we look at. But ultimately, what's frustrating to me, to kind of harp back on it again, is that we, again, didn't get anything for Gordon Hayward. Like, you know, all the rumors of it was going to do a sign and trade, we were going to do something. You know, there is rumors that there is going to do like a sign and trade where we sign Gordon Hayward, but then we trade him away immediately to the Hornets and we get something out of it. But the thing is, I don't want draft picks again. Like, I think the Celtics fans, and we're all tired of just getting draft picks. We want to eventually get to the NBA Finals. We were so close last year, you know, even with Gordon Hayward out with injury for that short amount of time, even with the birth of his child, out of the bubble a little bit, so he wasn't like fully into the team. But ultimately, I think the injury that he had years back when he first was the Celtic, I think that really affected us in progressing the way that we wanted to. And I think the unfortunate thing about it is that now, like I said, we get nothing in return for Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward right now is just kind of, making the most money that he can. There's rumors that he might be going to the Knicks. I don't know why anyone would want to go to New York at this point unless you're going to Brooklyn. But this is just kind of a sad state of affairs for the Celtics, but also kind of a sad state of affairs for the Hornets because, like I said, like the aspirations that is looking like you're going for, it's not necessarily going for like you're not going to be top 4 in the East. You're going to be battling for that kind of playoff spot for a play-in game, the 9 and 10 seed event that have that. I'm not sure why they're allowed. I don't know if the NBA decided like this is probably the best format so we can allow these type of teams to get in. But ultimately, I think you're rewarding not bad behavior, but bad ownership, bad management, especially, when you're overpaying these players an astronomical degree. And, it should be punishable. Like you should, like if you're signing these players and you're, for however much money and you don't do your research on them and they don't fit the right scheme for you, then you shouldn't necessarily get bailed out by this play-in game. But I do think it's going to be an exciting thing to add to the NBA, but at the same time, I get the frustrations of these 7th and 8th seed teams when you've done everything right or you've clicked on all the right cylinders. Meanwhile, a team like the Hornets, who, could potentially be a 10th seed in this league, end up making the playoffs and maybe beating you because they have all these players. I don't know. Like, it's just, I don't know if this is necessarily the team that I'm, like, excited about, per se, but at the same time, this is going to be an interesting NBA offseason. We got Fred VanVleet signing, going back to the Tampa Bay Raptors. They're just going to play there for a season. That's why I call it the Tampa Bay Raptors. But, there's not really that much to kind of go over at this point just because I think this is just kind of my initial thoughts on the Gordon Hayward signing somewhere. But I will be discussing more free agency stuff tomorrow on a live stream. So if you guys are interested, go ahead and tune into that. It's going to be a fun one to kind of watch and see because, we'll talk about all the moves that were made, all the players that were signed. The Lakers seem to be getting better and better. Bogdanovich is rumored also now to go there. There's just a lot of things that the Lakers right now are doing that is just really, I'm liking the moves. I'm really liking the moves. Montrezl Harrell, I forgot to kind of mention him as well, signing to the LA Lakers, kind of switching sides on them, going from the basement now to actually playing in the main stage called the Staples Center. Eventually, the Clippers will move out and they'll stop paying their rent. But anyway, that's kind of it right now for like what I'm noticing. But kind of just to go back to the Gordon Hayward thing, like I love the fact that he's getting paid, but at the same time, it's just kind of crazy that a team would pay him that much when I don't think that there was really necessarily a market for him. I would think maybe around this 50 to 60 million range would be probably appropriate for where he was at. But to get a 4-year 120, that's just insane. And so let me know in the comment section down below, guys, what do you think of this Gordon Hayward move? It's not necessarily a move that I would have done if I'm the Hornets. You just got LaMelo Ball. You're trying to build a future with him as your point guard. Terry Rozier hasn't really panned out. Bismack Biyombo has not panned out. Nicholas Batum has just taken money away from you now. So Michael Jordan needs to be assessed because I think that these are just bad moves for them in general. But nevertheless, this is just kind of my opinion. Let me know in the comment section down below what your guys' opinion of this is because, like I said, this is interesting. It's exciting, but also at the same time, for Celtics fans, it's also an L for us as well. We have to kind of take the L on this one because I think that we could have gotten something for him, I should say. But at the end of the day, we just didn't do the right things, and we frustratingly are still kind of in this oven-baked process where now we have to restart and redo everything. But it's just to kind of go on. I know that I had talked about ending this video, but I just have to keep talking about it. It's just at the end of the day, I think Gordon Hayward, although he would not have been the best player for us, I think just kind of figuring out a sign and trade for him, figuring out a deal where he could go somewhere. Maybe I would be interested in getting like a Bogdanovich, but I don't know if we have the cap space for it at this moment. And I do like the trade that my friend kind of brought up for Kemba Walker and Jaylen Brown for Bradley Beal and John Wall. I'm not necessarily like a big fan of John Wall just because I think shooting-wise he's not as good as the other two. But the problem with Kemba Walker at this point, I think many people realize, is that I think he's just too small to play defense, and he's kind of a liability in that aspect. Jimmy Butler cooked him in the NBA Eastern Conference Finals. the Philadelphia 76ers have only gotten stronger. I think this is kind of their last push before they decide whether it's Joel Embiid or Ben Simmons. And the East has gotten stronger. I mean, we're going to see the Nets, see if they make that trade for James Harden. I know that they signed Joe Harris. They re-signed him. Probably one of the better three-point shooters in the league out of the state of Seattle or state of Washington from Chelan. Pretty good shooter. I like his shooting ability, and I thought the Lakers should have tried and maybe signed him. But, you know, they have other aspirations and other moves that they're going to try and go for. But another thing that I kind of wanted to shout out to is Rich Paul, for the agent for LeBron James, or kind of the agent for everybody, it seems like now. He's getting his players played, man. I hope that one day he represents me, because that those contracts are looking pretty tasty. But, you know, shout out to Clutch Sports. You know, it seems like they're getting their guys paid. Hopefully they're doing the thing where they pay them up front. I know that that's kind of something that Rich Paul does as his thing. Like, he likes to get his guys paid up front rather than paid later. Especially during this pandemic, it's going to be, you know, we'll see like how much money is being made, what's going on. I know that they're going to start the season relatively soon. But anyway, guys, that's kind of just my opinion. Let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think of this whole ordeal? Do you think that it's a win for the Charlotte Hornets to sign Gordon Hayward to a 120 deal? Or do you think that it's an L for them because they already have so many overpaid players? And also let me know about the Boston Celtics. Tyrese, I know if you're in the comment section, let me know what you think about this. Ultimately, I think it's an L for us, and I'm really frustrated as a Celtics fan because I think we could have done a better job at getting players to really help us and really do something. But ultimately, I think we're going to have to take the L on this one. But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie, here on The Charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. And again, guys, I apologize if the sound quality isn't as good, but I had to get this news out right away because I'm not going to be at the computer